Fire Call, the fire safety show with Division Chief Jim Sideras.
Hi, my name is Division Chief Jim Sideras, and you're watching Fire Call. This episode, we're going to have all kinds of stuff going on. We're going to be talking to Captain Jeff Winters about some of the gear he wears, and Jeff and I have been through a lot of fires, and I think more than once we've saved each other's butts from getting cooked. You're also going to meet Battalion Chief Bill Curry. Bill Curry is overseeing some great training with our specially designed rescue teams, and you got to see that because that's pretty darn cool. We're going to have Chief chat with Don Hill, talk about some of the questions, and answer lots of questions. So sit back, take a load off your feet, spend some time in my world, the world of Sioux Falls Fire Rescue. This question comes from Aaron in Sioux Falls, and Aaron wants to know, what's USAR stand for? Well, Aaron, USAR stands for Urban Search and Rescue, and these are the specially trained crews that will go anywhere to save your life. They're training out here, and they're actually cutting through this building, practicing on how to breach holes all the way through concrete, and concrete and mortar and brick. This is a critical skill for getting someone out quickly. Now, last time we talked about, we had Grant Van Riesen. We talked about Grant about his gear. This is Jeff Winters. He's a captain with one of the USAR teams, and you can look at, don't tip over, Jeff. And you can look at, we talked about the USAR gear, but this gear is a little different. It fits sleeker so they can get through these holes, and these helmets are designed that they're not as big and bulky. They're designed so they can squeeze through holes. Now, Jeff, I'm going to put you on the spot here. What do you think of this new USAR gear?
I like it. It's very comfortable. Like you said, it kind of fits to my body, so there's not a bunch of baggage on it. So when we have to go through a hole, I'm not getting snagged up on debris when I go through, so it's very practical.
Now, from when you started, I was timing you. I don't know if I told you I was timing you. From when you first started punching through this hole, it took a half hour. Now, I thought that was pretty quick because the guys doing it by hand took a lot longer. What do you think about this new equipment that you're using? Can you tell us about some of the new equipment that you have?
Well, we've got some electric hammer drills that we can put chisel blades on, and what we did over here is we used where the mortar was to try and chisel the bricks out, and then there was hollow block behind that, sheetrock behind that, so we had 3 layers of debris we had to get through to get to the inside. We also have another air chisel that we were using, and then you get the good old sledgehammer.
Nothing beats a big sledge. Well, thanks a lot, Jeff. I'll let you get back to work. Well, next we'll talk to Bill Curry. Now, Bill Curry he's overseeing this operation. He's very well talented, and he's doing part of the training for this people. So next we'll find Bill. He's around here someplace. Now, this is Bill Curry. Bill Curry's a battalion chief. Bill Curry is one of the best people for USAR in the whole country. He's trained with the best in the world. Now, I'm going to ask Bill a couple of questions. Now, Bill, looking at this whole shoring operation, can you just kind of tell us what's with the shoring and why is it so important?
Okay, well, first off, whether the building's been damaged by fire or an explosion, a tornado, or an earthquake, what we're simulating here is a floor failure, and we have a collapse of either the roof or a second story floor. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, there's a lot of lateral pressure that's pushed on the outside of the buildings. On the load-bearing walls, and those walls want to topple over on firefighters who might be working to gain entrance to a void space to rescue a victim. Sure. What we see back here is a mechanical strut system called a raker shore, and what that does is it makes attachment about up at the 11-foot marker, where that in this building the roof and the load-bearing wall are connected. And what it does is it helps support that wall and keeps it from being pushed out as all that lateral pressure from, say, like a V-collapse or a lean-to collapse pushes on the outside of that wall. So it makes it safer for the firefighters to operate up close to the building inside what would ordinarily be termed the collapse zone.
Now, who else has this type of equipment and training that you know of in our immediate vicinity?
Right now, it's Sioux Falls Fire Rescue and Minnehaha County Emergency Management. As for the rest of South Dakota, it's very, very limited.
Well, thanks, Bill. Now, it's guys like Bill that we're going to depend a lot on, and you're going to depend on if something major happens. We're with Don Hill, and this is our little chief chat session, and I have 3 questions, Don, and they're all pretty much the same. One's from Sean in Sioux Falls. Make sure you get credit for this. One's from Frank in Calabash, North Carolina. And the last one is from Kayla in Sioux Falls. They want to know, how many trucks do we have and what kind of trucks are they?
Well, we have 10 first-line fire apparatus, and of those 10, 4 of them have aerial ladders on them, so they're aerial ladder trucks, and 3 of them are rescue pumpers. We have another truck ordered now, another rescue pumper ordered for our next fire station that's under construction. Besides those trucks, we have 4 reserve trucks, 4 reserve engines, and we also have 3 tankers, 3 hazardous materials response units, and some other units as well.
Great. Okay, now here's the tricky part. The next question is, how many stations do you have, and what determines where we put stations at?
Well, that's not really all that tricky.
Make me feel good now.
We have 8 stations right now, and we're building our 9th one. And we determine our station locations by our response times. There are a number of things that factor in there, but our goal is to meet the NFPA standard of responding to 90% of our emergencies in 5 minutes or less. So we try to locate our stations in the best locations so that we can cover the most of the city in 5 minutes or less.
How do you determine the locations from the station to the different addresses in Sioux Falls?
We have a geographical information system in the city, and they are able to plot on a map for us the response times based on the speed limits of the roads that we have in town. And so we can figure roughly how long it will take us to get to each place in Sioux Falls. And we put that all on a map, and that's how we pick our station locations. We also do some testing of that by plotting on other maps our actual response times to various locations in the city and making sure that the GIS information is accurate.
Well, great. So that's from Don Hill. How are we doing? I hope that answers your question. It's time for your pop quiz. This is going to determine if you're going to be a hero or a zero. How far should you park away from a fire hydrant? A, 15 feet, B, 25 feet, C, 50 feet, or D, it really doesn't matter. The answer is A, 15 feet. And this question is from Leah, who wants to know, how far should you park away? Now, when we look at 15 feet from a hydrant, there's a really important reason we need that distance. 15 feet is going to be about this far on both sides from that fire hydrant. Now, the reason for this, Leah, is that when these fire trucks pull up, and if there's a fire, they're going to pull their hoses off, they're going to be right here pulling hoses off, and they're going to wrap them around this fire hydrant. So they're going to wrap their hoses around the fire hydrant, fire truck takes off, hose is going to lay out, and they need about this much working space. So it's very critical that these fire hydrants are kept free. Now, we have another cool question. This one comes from Sarah. Sarah wants to know, why don't we have fire hydrants out in the county? Well, Sarah, it's really simple. We have water mains going all the way down the city that feed homes. And these water mains feed the homes, feed the businesses, and are connected to the fire hydrants. Out in the county, we don't have that water supply. We don't have the water towers to raise the pressure. So we have something better than that. And that's going to take us to our next section. Okay, Sarah, so what do we do when we go out in these rural areas and we don't have fire hydrants? Well, we have a truck that's a big tanker truck. Now, it's called different things in different parts of the country, but this is a water tanker truck. And I have with me Gary Halliburton. Gary's driving this big bad boy. We're going to ask you some questions about this truck, Gary. You ready?
Yes, Jim.
Trick questions.
Okay.
When was this one built?
This was built in 1978. It's a 78 model.
Okay.
It's a Ford 9000.
And it's at your station, but Don Hill was telling us that not all the trucks are manned, and this is one of those?
This is one of these that are cross-manned. When necessary, where this truck would go to places where they don't have hydrants or in a rural setting.
Okay.
And then we're dispatched to those areas.
So you just basically leave your truck, your regular truck in the station, and you all hop on this one and take off and go to that fire?
Well, not necessarily. Our engine company will either follow us in some cases, or we'll take two individuals on the tanker.
Okay. Now this is a big truck. How many gallons does this hold?
This one here holds 2,000 gallons.
What's your regular truck have?
It has 500 gallons.
So it's a lot of water in this truck.
Yes, it causes some different road conditions that you have to be aware of when you're driving such a beast as this with that 2,000 gallons of water.
Just the sloshing around the water makes a difference?
The turns are going to be sloshy and stops are going to be sloshy, and with all that weight, it doesn't stop that great.
That's all good considerations. One of the things you have to worry about in the fire service is accidents, and accidents with these trucks is really important. Let's go around the one question I have for you is you get to a fire and you got a big fire going out in the country. You got all this water. How do we get this water, 2,000 gallons, isn't going to last us very long. How do we operate in those kind of situations?
Well, that's like you said, there's no hydrants out there, so we have to set up a porta tank. And this tank happens
drop tank.
Yeah, drop tank, and it'll fold up and goes into a compartment on the side of this truck.
We set this up earlier. It didn't take us very long. A couple of rough and tumble guys like we are, we just threw this down ourselves.
Yep, and magically this tank will hold the same amount as the truck, which is that same 2,000 gallons.
Good planning, Gary. So you get up, you set this truck up, or you set the dump tank up, the drop tank, I'm sorry, you set the drop tank up, you come in, empty your truck, and then what do you do?
Well, then there'll be another engine company that'll draft water out of this tank. Suck it out, and then go through its pump, and basically we'll just be shuttling water.
And you're going to go back, fill up, come back, and drop off.
Correct.
Now, the thing I'm waiting to do, Gary, I want to fill it. You ready?
Ready.
Okay, let's do it.
All right.
Now, some of the things you have to think about when you're setting this up are, what do you have to think about, Gary?
Well, you have to put the tank in a spot where you can drive by, and you'll be sitting waiting for probably another tanker to drop their load into the tank. So then you have to be able to drive by and then pull ahead, not back up and stuff, which is time delayed.
And dangerous.
Yeah, yep. So you just want to drive by the tank, or drive up to the tank, dump, and drive straight ahead.
Do I get to dump?
The time is now.
Okay, let's do it.
Looks like a couple thousand gallons to me.
It does, and we didn't even top it off yet. Didn't take very long to fill up, and it probably doesn't take very long to draft or suck it all out, does it?
No, the longest time is loading it again.
Sure.
Yep.
Well, thanks, Gary, and this is one of our tankers, and Sarah, we're glad for your question. Our next question comes from Caleb. Caleb is 7 years old, probably one of our younger watchers, and he lives in Renner, South Dakota. Caleb's dad is a volunteer firefighter, and Caleb wants to know, how many times did Sioux Falls Fire Rescue go out and help volunteer departments? Well, that's a great question, Caleb. And what I did is I looked up our annual report. Easy to get, talks about all our calls. And what I did is I looked back 5 years, and we're averaging about 40 times a year that we're going out to help volunteers. Sometimes we might have to call them to come in and help us if we have a very big fire. That's why those tankers are important. When we go outside of Sioux Falls, they might not have that water supply. So Caleb, thanks for your question. We're running about 40 times a year outside of Sioux Falls. Well, this question comes to us from Jason in Sioux Falls, and Jason wants to know, what's a 4-alarm fire? Well, Jason, that's a really good question, but we need to think the terminology of a 4-alarm fire. We need to look back at how fires are rated as far as how many resources we pull into that fire. Resources mean both fire apparatus and staff. When we have a regular fire, and we're just going to draw a building here, let's just say it's a couple-story building. We have a small fire. We're going to call a single alarm fire on that, which means the regular complement of fire trucks and staff that's going to go to that fire. So for a fire alarm or a one alarm fire, we're going to have 2 engines, a truck or a ladder, and a 1 battalion chief. We do that all the time, every day. Now, Jason, fire's getting a little bigger. We might need more resources on this. It might be spreading. We're starting to see maybe smoke up in the 2nd floor. We like to call those alarms, we call them striking a second alarm, striking the next alarm box, to get to those resources coming before we need them. We don't want to be waiting, needing those trucks and not having them. So a lot of times the battalion chiefs will strike a second alarm. Now what that means is we're going to ask for more resources. Now in the second alarm, we're going to get 2 more engines, 2 more pumpers, might be a ladder, and we're going to get, from last episode, we saw that ALV, air light vent truck. That's automatically dispatched on a second alarm because they're going to start having to fill those tanks. We might need lights, all that kind of equipment that truck has. That's a second alarm. You asked about a 4th alarm. We're going to build now. Now we're seeing fire up here. This isn't going to cut it. We need more people, more trucks. We strike a 3rd alarm. 3rd alarm is going to get us some interesting things. It's going to get us 2 more trucks. It's also going to start pulling in off-duty staff. We're going to get those mechanics. We have mechanics that are part of our department. We need those people because we're going to start having to work on those trucks. They're going to be, things can go wrong with the trucks. They're going to be working hard. We want them at that fire right away. So we're going to pull up our mechanics. And on the 3rd alarm fire, we're going to start notifying those small departments. Just like Caleb's question about Renner, we're going to call them up and say, hey, we got a good fire going on here. We might need some more help. So we're going to call mutual aid. Now, Jason, we have another building attached. We start seeing smoke over here. Smoke and fire. This fire is getting really big. What do? We strike what you call a 4th alarm. 4th alarm, all our staff's going to start coming in. Off-duty people coming in, all our on-duty people coming in, and we're going to have pretty much just about a total commitment. 4 alarm fire, big fire. We don't have many of those. 2 alarm fires, not uncommon. Now, Sioux Falls, because of the resources we have, can go all the way up to a 5th alarm, a 5 alarm fire. What 5 alarm fires does, it brings all our older reserve trucks in. We also start pulling in all our mutual aid from outside Sioux Falls, staging those folks. And we start notifying other governmental agencies that we have a major incident in Sioux Falls. So we're talking about governmental agencies. Now I know what you're going to ask. Have you ever had a 5 alarm fire? Yes, we have. Not that long ago, we had a building downtown, start off similar to this. Turned into a 5 alarm fire. Older building. Remember we saw Captain Winters? Well, back then Captain Winters was a firefighter, and so was I, and we were the first ones on that building. Turned into a 5 alarm fire. So it does happen. We're prepared now. Some cities will have 7, 8, 9 alarm fires, depending on the resources. Most common is this setup right here. So Jason, 4 alarm fires right here. We're calling everybody in. 5 alarms, as bad as it's going to get. We hope we don't have those too often. Thanks for your question, and check your mailbox. Well, I hope you like this show. I'm still a little giddy from hanging out with the USAR crews. And we got to most of your questions. There's still a lot we haven't answered. We might have to save those for another time. If you want to get your question answered, you know where to call. You know where to write. www.siouxfalls.org/fire. And we do have a shout out. The shout out this month goes to Sacramento Fire Department, Sacramento, California. And we've been corresponding with the ex-chief out there, and he's pretty darn cool. So if you want to get a t-shirt, send us a question. We'll see what we can do. And hope you like the show. My name is Division Chief Jim Sideras, and you've been watching Fire Call.